Hey Patriots, we are weeks, if not days away from the election, and many are wondering how this whole thing is going to play out. Well, we have a gift. The left has blessed us with a 22-page report on how they think that we're going to act and how they're going to respond, and spoiler alert, the whole thing is bat poo-poo crazy. Buckle up your Trump derangement syndrome seatbelts, America, because we're going to go through how the left is going to steal the election of 2020 away from the American people. A little different format today. I'm going to be half reading, half speaking to you. I love looking you directly in your patriotic eyeballs, but I don't have time to memorize this whole script. I want to get this information out to you ASAP. It is a very big deal. And a quick shout out to my main sponsor, GMR Gold. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't like doing advertisements in the middle of my videos. I just don't. I want to get the information to you, and I know you want to hear it, but it's companies like this that allow me to do this full time and bring you this information for free. I will not ask for donations, but what I do is ask that if you are considering buying things like silver and gold, that you go to a company like GMR Gold to do so. It benefits me, it benefits you, and it benefits them, and everybody happy. I chose to work with them because of their integrity and because their values of faith, family, and freedom. If you use my vault code GOODPATRIOT, you will get a free coin with any subscription box. Alright, let's get down to business. Okay, so in June 2020, some anti-Trump Democrats like John Podesta and Donna Brazile and a handful of other people that have ties to none other than George Soros, of course, got together with some disgruntled Republicans, and they did this thing called the Transition Integrity Project. It's a role-playing scenario where they pretend that there's an election crisis and they find out what's going to happen. I feel like I'm having deja vu with this whole role-playing scenario thing. Oh yeah, they did it with the pandemic. Remember, they got together a panel and then they pretended there was a pandemic, and then a short time later a big pandemic actually happened. Funny how that happens. So now we have a just in case we have an election crisis whole panel scenario report. So let's take some serious notes about what they have planned for us coming up in the next few months. Okay, so there were 4 possible election result outcomes according to this report. Number 1, an unclear winner the morning after the election because the numbers were too close between Trump and Biden. Number 2, that Joe Biden won both the Electoral College and popular vote by a healthy margin. Number 3, that President Trump won the electoral vote but lost the popular vote by a healthy margin. And I should mention here that the authors of the report believe that the Electoral College is an anti-democratic thing and they want it abolished entirely. More on that in a second. And the final outcome was that Joe Biden won both the electoral and the popular vote, but by a narrow margin. Now notice here that in their scenarios, Trump never won both the electoral and the popular vote. They don't even think it's possible, and they won't even consider it. Interesting. Okay, so some quick information on the Electoral College. It does 3 things. 1, it protects against the tyranny of the majority, just like a republic protects against a democracy. The founders put the Electoral College in place to protect the minority. 2, it encourages coalition building and makes sure the president cares about each and every state and not just the ones with the higher populations. And 3, it protects against voter fraud. And that is why so many Democrats want it to be completely abolished. If you want to know how the Electoral College works exactly, I encourage you to watch the 2 videos that PragerU has on it. You can go to their YouTube page or their website. Look up Electoral College and PragerU. So they took these 4 possible scenarios and role-played and came up with how they're going to counteract the aggressive actions of President Trump and his follower base. Side note, what is with the left and all this role-playing stuff? I would love it if y'all could just role-play your way into following the Constitution and then see how that would work out for everybody. So even though these were just games, believe me when I say that these things have been in the works for a long time. They weren't just spur-of-the-moment creative solutions to unlikely problems. These were practice runs for what's coming. Here are some key takeaways that you need to know from this report. Number 1, the concept of having an election night is no longer accurate and is indeed dangerous. That is a direct quote. To have an election night is dangerous. So what they mean by that is that results cannot possibly be known on a specific date like they have been dozens of times in history before. That's absurd. We've been hearing Democrats psychologically conditioning us to accept this as normal.
Is preparing the American people that there's nothing illegitimate about this election taking additional days or even weeks to make sure that all of the votes are counted.
We're going to take this seriously and make sure that people aren't declaring victory and saying that any kind of ongoing counting of votes is evidence of a rigged election or anything like that. I think that would be dangerous. I think it would be kind of delegitimizing of the election, and I think it could risk increasing, people getting into the streets and civil unrest after the election, which I think would be very problematic.
We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances, because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch.
Logic would just have a cutoff date as to when the ballots have to be in, but apparently with this election, the states get to choose when they feel like letting that happen, and even then, who knows how long it will actually take to count them, and it also takes dead people longer to vote, so there's that too. Another conclusion they came to is that Trump will definitely prioritize his personal gain and self-protection over ensuring an orderly administrative handoff to his successor, and leave with reckless actions. So they are assuming that not only will Trump not win, but if he doesn't, he's going to sabotage on his way out. Also, anything he does to contest election results will be viewed as the actions of a ruthless dictatorship and not the simple questioning of the integrity of the voting results. All of his actions will be viewed as tyrannical by the left, and they are calling for their base to revolt against it. Next, they say we need to address the two biggest threats head on: the lies about voter fraud and lies about escalating violence. They think that voter fraud is virtually non-existent, and if you're talking about it, it's a conspiracy theory. Never mind that it's actually already been happening.
There were ballots, because Nevada mass mailed them out to voter rolls, that were piling up in apartment complexes, outside of apartment complexes in Las Vegas, sitting around in trash cans. This is how we're protecting ballots. It's extraordinary. Postal workers, one 36-year veteran carrier said she's never seen anything like these influx of absentee ballots.
The left and the media says that there's no fraud. True or false?
That is completely false. Anybody who's pushing all-mail election, I think, doesn't realize the inherent security vulnerabilities of absentee ballots or all-mail elections, because you're basically taking the election process outside of polling places that are supervised.
Mail-in ballots for South Carolina turned up in Maryland. There's another example of 700 suspicious mail-in ballots in Dallas, and an individual charged with second-degree felony illegal voting.
They say that this is how Trump will mobilize his base to action should he lose. They also say that the potential for violent conflict is high, particularly since Trump encourages his supporters to take up arms. That's cute. See, we do that all on our own. There's no encouragement needed. Let's talk about the other lie of escalating violence. Look, lefties, I know that y'all think we're a bunch of white supremacists, not educated hicks, but we do have eyeballs. We can see escalating violence and we know where it's coming from. The authors of the report also want us to know that they aren't trying to frighten anyone, but rather spur all stakeholders to action. They go on to say that they basically want elected officials, civil society leaders, the press, and people to challenge Trump's authoritarian actions in the courts, in the media, and in the streets through peaceful protest. Peaceful protest. Lefties, I do not think that word means what you think it means. So we know that anti-Trump groups have a tendency to resort to violence, but in the report they will claim that it is the pro-Trump protesters that will be causing any civil unrest after election night. They will blame violence on us. Remember that. Everything that the left does wrong, the violence, the cheating, the lying, they will project those actions onto us like they already have been doing. Think Russian collusion. They keep claiming that that's what Trump does, but it's been made clear that the Clintons and the Bidens are actually the ones that have colluded with the Russians. Another interesting tidbit in the report, they said that social media in particular will play a heavy role in how the public perceives the outcome of the election. They say that big tech's company policies and enforcement decisions will be consequential. Basically, they're encouraging all big tech and social media to censor conservatives. There recently has been a ton of conservative pages being permanently banned and shadow banned across all big social media platforms, so expect that to get worse in the coming days and through November and beyond. I do not expect this video to stay up long, so it will be on my website if you need to share it or reference it in the future. The TIP report also says that what happens before Election Day will to a large extent determine the margin of contestation, or how many people will contest the results. So let's talk about polling numbers. Do you ever hear that Biden is ahead in the polls despite not being able to get a fraction of the people that President Trump gets at his rallies? Or he can't even complete a coherent sentence. The Black, Latino, and gay communities are leaving the left by the thousands, but somehow Biden keeps climbing in his popularity and his polling numbers. The polling numbers are twisted, manipulated, and flat out lies to make you think that he actually has a chance at winning. And that way, when all the mail-in ballots come in and he wins the popular vote by fraud, you'll think that it wasn't so far off because the polls did say he could win. Reality says different. Remember that. Alright, so I finished writing the script and then went on YouTube to relax and saw that Glenn Beck had also just done a video on this report as well. And thank goodness, because this information needs to be shouted from the rooftops. So please watch his video as well for a more in-depth perspective. He's got a whole team to do research, so he knows like the authors of it, their ties to Soros, the whole history of the movement and everything. And please also print out the report. Do an internet search for the Transition Integrity Project. You will be able to find it, or if they take it down, I think Glenn Beck might have a link on his page as well. The first 2 pages alone will blow your mind, and the whole report will tell you what's coming. This is huge. Sorry for the random noise in the background, but for the first time, I don't know, in like 3 years, my neighbors have decided to throw rocks into metal trash cans, burn bamboo, and yell at each other. So, yeah. I'm going to leave you with this closing quote from the report that is specific to you and I. More broadly, there needs to be a robust, intentional, and specific strategy to challenge the white supremacist and extremist networks that enable Trump's rise to power. This base will not automatically demobilize if and when Trump leaves office, and it is hostile to the kind of pluralist democracy the founders intended. So they're saying that we're a problem and we need to be challenged. So you want to challenge this base? Well, we're not white supremacists or extremists, but to the authors of the Transition Integrity Project report, and on behalf of the Patriots of the United States, challenge accepted. Alright guys, I will put relevant links to the report and the videos I mentioned in my YouTube comment, and if it gets taken down, I will put that info on my website in the form of a newsletter. The left is so arrogant they have literally handed us their playbook for stealing the election. Spread this information like wildfire. Be smart, stay safe, pray for our country. I'm Good Patriot. Please go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, so if and when I get shut down, we can still stay in touch. I'm praying for you guys. I love you. Thank you so much. I'll see you again soon, and God bless.